Jingle jingle friends, welcome to Holidays at Harmony Hills Home and Garden. I'm Jenny and we garden and celebrate here in Baltimore, Maryland, Zone 7. Today we are thick in the middle of the holiday treat season. We have more pounds of sugar available for snacking on in this house than any person should ever have. However, it's the holidays, so why not, right? Today I'm going to venture away from gardening and toward the kitchen, and I'm making my very favorite recipe of caramel corn. Now this one is a cooked caramel on the stove. It's not baked and it has nuts. Oh, so many nuts. This is delicious. Come with me and let's make this caramel corn together. The first step in this recipe is to pop 10 cups of popcorn. Plain popcorn, no salt, no butter on it. I like to do mine on the stovetop, but you could also make it in the microwave. Pour the popcorn into a large bowl. I have these large stainless steel bowls which work really nicely. And in fact, this whole kettle full of popcorn was a double recipe, and so it's way more than I needed. I like to dig through there and make sure that the unpopped kernels stay in the kettle and not go into the bowl, otherwise it might crack a tooth. Next, I'm measuring out my nuts. These are raw nuts, they have not been roasted. I like almonds, peanuts, and pecans in my caramel corn. And I made a mistake of mixing all of my nuts together into the same bowl, and I did not want to do that, so don't do that. Measure your nuts separately. This recipe doesn't have very many ingredients, but it does need white sugar and brown sugar, salt, baking soda, and corn syrup. It also calls for just a little bit of butter and some water. If you're trying to cut down on sugar, don't make this recipe. It calls for a packed half cup of brown sugar and a cup and a half of white sugar plus a half a cup of corn syrup. Now for the corn syrup, I learned a little trick this year from watching other people's videos, and that is if you use cooking spray to coat your measuring cup, then your corn syrup won't stick to the measuring cup and you'll get more of your measured amount into your bowl. This also works for molasses or maple syrup or any other sort of sugary sweet syrup. So now I'm just adding a half cup of water into the pot, and then we're going to start stirring and boiling. You're going to want to use a non-stick pan if you have one. I turned my heat on to medium or medium-high or so, and I stirred with a silicone spatula so that it wouldn't burn or melt in my pan. We're going to bring this up to a temperature of 300 degrees Fahrenheit eventually, so it's important to use tools that can handle that sort of heat. Once the mixture has started to boil, then you want to put the lid on it, and the steam that's created in there will wash down the sides of the container, and any sugar crystals that are on the sides will wash back down into the mixture. Now you'll see here that I'm picking my pecans out of my mixed nuts, and the reason I'm doing that is because we want to add the nuts in at different times, at different temperatures as the mixture is cooking. Some nuts need less time cooking than others, so the almonds need to be in the mixture for a long time, and the pecans don't need to be in there very much at all. So I am painstakingly trying to get these pecans out of this mixed nut bowl so that I don't burn them by adding them in too early with the almonds. And by the time I have that job mostly done, it's been a minute, and so it's time to take the lid off of the container. You should have your heat set to medium or medium-high at the most, and you should have a nice good rolling boil going on now. Now I'm using my thermometer to see what the temperature is. Make sure you don't touch the probe of the thermometer down onto the bottom of the pan. That will give you a false reading. I'm using this digital thermometer, which is awesome, but you can also use a more traditional candy thermometer if you want. This gives me a digital readout, and it's really precise. I'm aiming for 240 degrees, and when I get to 240 degrees Fahrenheit, I'll add in the almonds so that the almonds can cook in with the mixture. Okay, so we've reached 240 degrees Fahrenheit, so now it's time to add 2 tablespoons of butter and our raw almonds. And the almonds will cook in this mixture, and they will give a little bit of almond flavor to the candy itself. And when the candy is finished, they will be a wonderful crunchy consistency. And now we just continue to stir and raise the temperature of this mixture up. I think we're going to add the peanuts in at about 250 degrees, and we'll add the pecans in at 285 degrees. So you want to keep stirring pretty constantly, and you can take a break here and there, but also at this time I decided to go ahead and measure out my baking soda and my salt while also stirring and keeping an eye on my mixture. Okay, we've hit 285 degrees, and so it's time to put in those raw pecans so that they also can cook in the mixture. Now, as it turns out, I think I added about a half a cup to a cup more nuts than was called for in the recipe. So this mixture is really chock full of nuts, and it was actually a little bit difficult to stir, but I liked it that way, so it was no problem. Now we're aiming for 300 degrees, and at 300 is when we turn off the heat. All right, there it is, 300. So I turned off the burner. And now it's time to add in the salt and the baking soda. Now this is going to puff up and bubble up, so it's a really good idea to use a pot that is at least 6 quarts, if not larger. And at this point the mixture looks sort of frothy, but that's going to help it coat the popcorn without melting the popcorn and making it soggy. So now it's time to quickly pour this mixture over top of the popcorn and then stir the popcorn around and make sure it's very evenly coated. Make sure you have heat pads and silicone utensils and do not burn yourself. This would be a severe burn. And actually, I feel like I had too much candy mixture and not enough popcorn, so I took some of the other popcorn that I had from that double batch and I added some more in there. Stir it all around. Make sure all the popcorn kernels have candy coating on them. And then when everything is coated, before anything starts to set, get it over onto, I'm using a Silpat lined tray. You could also use parchment paper or aluminum foil. And you can see I'm having trouble getting it out of the bottom of the bowl because the caramel has already started to set. So get it out of there as quickly as you can. Don't burn yourself though, it's still very hot. And then you're going to spread it out into the shallowest layer that you can, aiming for a single layer, although that can be difficult. After the mixture has completely cooled, which usually only takes 10 or 15 minutes, then you can use your very freshly cleaned hands to break the mixture up into bite-sized pieces. And because there are so many nuts in this recipe, it can be hard to get it to break apart into small chunks. So, just do the best you can. And now that the candy is all broken up, it's time to store it in an airtight container. You want to make sure it's very airtight, otherwise humidity will get in there and make the candy pieces stick to each other. But if it's nice and airtight, then it's beautiful and fresh and yummy and delicious and oh so good. Thanks so much for following along. The recipe that I got this from is from a book called Candy Making for Dummies, and I will put a link to that book in the description box down below. Tell me, what kind of treats do you make at the holiday season? We are heavy into candy making here at our house. Chocolate, other sorts of candies, all kinds of things. How about you? What do you like to do? Leave me a comment below and let me know. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay sweet, friends, and I'll see you in another video real soon.